and welcome to episode 72 of the Gaslec podcast. And thank you very much, Dave, guys, for listening and for watching on YouTube or on Spotify as well. And this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the Gas Safe Week. So we're coming up to the end of the week. And why do we have Gas Safe Week? What's it all about? And I'll tell you all about it. Also, we're going into the history of heating in the home. There's some facts and figures there, which are quite astounding, really. And we've had some challenges already this week. I'm recording this on Monday the evening. It's coming out on Tuesday the 16th. But I had some challenges today, and I will be running through those with you guys. So hopefully you can help you as well out there in the field. But first of all, here's my friend Sean to tell you a bit more about the podcast. Homeowner that likes a bit of DIY, or are you a business owner and want a bit more knowledge before you make some decisions on your plumbing and heating? Stay tuned to the podcast and hopefully. And welcome back, guys, and thank you very much indeed. So, been checking out the FeedSpot Top 30 podcasts here in the UK, and we're at number 10. So we've slipped down a couple of spots down on the podcast listings. I don't know whether my format of the podcast is getting a little bit longer, so that's having a bit of a negative impact onto it. I'm not too sure, but I don't know how to find out these little bits and pieces. But we're getting busier, we're getting more listeners, we're getting more subscribers. So if you do listen to this, please do like and subscribe and push those little bells and buttons, because it does help the algorithm get out there to other people that may be searching for plumbing and heating tips and maybe looking for getting into the industry, like apprenticeships as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is the history of heating in the home. And really, I apologise for any of the pronunciations, I should say. It really goes back to the Romans. So they produced something called a hypocaust system. Around 95 BC, before the big man Jesus was born. It uses the technology of raising the floors on pillars and circulating hot air from a furnace or from a fire. And this was widely used in Roman villas and bathhouses across the empire. So when I looked into this, basically you had a void under a floor, as we'd call it now. Like a suspended floor, and they may have their baths, their swimming pools, or their bathing pools, as they were back in the day. And basically, they had like an open fire one side, and then the other side of the understructure, basically they made hollow bricks, which we'd now actually call a flue. And then that went up the outside too, and they realised that heat rises. If you created this, it'll create a draw, and it'll actually pull the smoke and the heat from the fire, and it'll pull it up to the chimney, and that will then deal with the heat and distribute it underneath the floors. And obviously, this would have been in the villas, the big posh places, and the Roman baths, which are pretty impressive. The Romans, I'm not massively into history myself, and I'll do this for the history section of the podcast, but I'm actually learning quite a lot myself, and certainly what the Romans actually did. A clever old bunch, weren't they? So in the 19th century, the first experiments with hot air systems and steam heating in larger buildings were driven by inventors like Jacob Perkins, who installed hot air systems for large clients in the 1810s and the 1820s. Steam heating developed gradually, and with systems being centralised, systems using centralised boilers and pipeworks becoming established, alongside the first hot water heating system, which began using small diameter wrought iron pipeworks around the 1930s, 1940s. By the late 19th century, the cast iron sectional radiators and more efficient boilers, like the one patented by John Mills in 1870, were becoming more common. So these are like the like the old school radiators. They sat on the floor and they were quite decorative, and they were sectional radiators. So they would have like this screw, and you could still get them. These are really expensive and heavy, and not that efficient as radiators go, but they look the part. And you sort of wind the sections together to build them up. So however big you wanted the radiator, and which was actually a fantastic idea. Because if you wanted a 4-section radiator, there it was. If you wanted a 10-section radiator, you just bought 10 sections. So a really good way of not producing one thing and then having to carry stocks of lots and lots of things. So probably without realising, it was actually a really good business idea there. So the gas infrastructure here in the UK was sort of rolled out in the 60s, and gas boilers really took off after that. And obviously we did have, from heating of homes, we had open fires and chimneys, and we had fires in the centre of buildings which radiated heat all the way around the outside. We had that in the early days, obviously going back to caveman times when we had gas, was burning fuel inside caves. I'm not too sure exactly about if they collected any data on CO poisoning back in those days, but really sort of the 1960s really took off. So the first condensing boilers were developed commercially in the Netherlands in the late 1970s and the early 80s, with Dutch manufacturers being along the first to bring the technology to market. The Netherlands had a very strict efficiency standards and drove the innovation. The leading developers of the compact wall-hung boilers are with secondary heat exchangers to recover more energy from the exhaust gases. The technology then spread across Europe, including Germany, Scandinavia, and eventually within the UK. So I've made a few notes here up on my teleprompter. So the Glowworm was the first to launch the energy-saving, mass-produced condensing boiler in 1992, making the technology sort of first and accessible here in the UK. And it wasn't until the 1st of April 2005, which sounds like a bit of a joke, doesn't it? When all gas boilers installed in the UK were legally required to be condensing to reduce the emissions, improve the efficiency, and to rely. Since the boiler itself had. So what I'm trying to get at, one of my spelling mistakes there, is really the combination, or so the condensing boiler hasn't really increased much in efficiency since 1992 or 2005, when eventually everyone come over. Where we're really seeing efficiencies are within the controls and how we manage the boiler, and lower flow temperatures is where the gains are made. So we have quite a few calls, and someone's got a condensing boiler and they say, all right, okay, it's 10, 12, 15 years old. If I rip it out and put a new boiler in, what sort of money gains and savings will I make? And I'm absolutely honest with the people and say that you're not really going to notice any major differences within the efficiencies of the boiler. You'll make efficiencies if it's a bit scaled up. You'll make efficiencies if you power flush the system. But a boiler out the box to that boiler out the box, actually as they go, not that great. So there's other things that we can do, like clean the heating system, like fit thermostatic valves, maybe zone the heating system, maybe smart controls with geofencing. So when you're on your way home, the boiler will turn on and then start heating your home up on the way back. And obviously, if we can reduce the heating flow temperatures, having low heating temperature design, like what we would have in the heat pumps and stuff, that's when we will get better heat control within the home and a more stable temperature. So we're losing less heat through all the pipework and stuff. So one of our favourite manufacturers here at Gaslec is actually Vaillant. We love Vaillant. They've got a great customer service, great product, and I think it's at a great price. So a little bit of history of Vaillant, really. So Vaillant boilers originated in 1874 by John Ann Vaillant, founded the German company, revolutionising heating within the 1894 patent for a closed system water heater, and in 1924 introduction of the first central heating boiler. The company continues to be family-owned business and the leader of the heating industry for innovations like the world-renowned Easter Bunny trademark adapted in 1899 and the development of the first wall-mounted and combination boilers. So so I got that off the internet there, so it was a little bit salesy. But Valent boilers are very good. They make stainless steel, they make aluminium heat exchangers. Very, we sell loads, and we sell more Valent boilers here at Gaslec than we do anything else. We have great trust in their product. So that's the history section of the podcast. So it's been Gas Safe Week. So what is Gas Safe Week if you don't know? So Gas Safe run all this social media stuff. They used to do some stuff on telly, but not a lot of people watch live TV anymore, but they do a lot of social media advertising. And this time of year is all about getting things ready for the winter. So whatever's happened all the winter, it's been turned off all summer. Predominantly, we see that all the time within the industry, not just here in Gaslec. And then in Gas Safe Week, it's a big hurrah, hurrah, wave the flags to make sure that we're being safe. And this year's, I think it's all about look out for your family, look out for your friends, look out for your neighbours. And I think that's the theme this year of being safe. So this week has been the 8th to the 15th of September. So it ends today when this is actually coming out. And it's really to spread the importance of gas safety here in the UK. So, the importance of checking gas-safe burning appliances and flues, gas leaks and the correct operations of the systems as well. So I'm looking around for some statistics. So the amount of illegal gas jobs that were done were then checked by GasSafe themselves. And there was a percentage of these, I think in 2024, they were actually found to be dangerous. So in central London, so I'll read out the top 5. So in central London, 75% of illegal gas jobs reported to GasSafe were actually found to be unsafe. Then we had Nottingham at 72%. Sheffield at 71, Outer London at 70, and Manchester at 69%. So that's really telling us really that, if we're getting odd job McBill down the road coming in and just having a little go, it can't be that difficult. But, there's so many things that we do in our training that we see and have to play by the rules. I get asked quite frequently it'll be all right over there, governor. That'll be all right. We've got a rusting out old flue on some sort of balanced flue system. It's like, no, it can't. And it's can't for a reason. And I've done a couple of podcasts ago where I was dealing with a guy he claimed to be a domestic gas installer. And for myself, I do domestic and commercial. And, you don't know what you don't know. And so if you just think you just push things together and pipe it up, put the water in, if it don't leak, it must be fine. If you don't know it, you just don't know it. And that's absolutely fine. But leave it to people that do. And that's the reason why this is a regulated industry overseen by the HSE. So looking for some statistics here. So on average, 31 people die from gas explosions here in the UK on average every single year. And obviously most of those do make the news. And there's many hundreds and hundreds of people that are actually injured from gas explosions too. And I think last year there was a couple of really sad stories of some children passing as well. On average, 50 people in the UK die from CO poisoning from gas appliances. And, carbon monoxide, I've gone through it before, will leak out from a fuel burning appliance. So if you've got a solid stove, wood burner, log burner, this also applies. You were burning logs, burning coal, as well as burning gas. And if we've got those gases and they're not being the products of combustion and they're not being managed correctly from some sort of fluing system or some sort of catalytic converter, if you've got a flueless gas appliance, we can really sort of build up the CO, and it's completely odorless. It's completely, you can't taste it. It's in the air and it comes through and it attaches itself to the red blood cells within your body within your blood, sorry, as it's then passing around, and stops the absorption of oxygen. And that's then what causes the brain damage, because the parts of the brain and the body don't get the oxygen that it needs, and those cells and those areas start dying off, and that's how you can get the brain damage, and that's how it can really start causing problems. And I did go through it about a job that I went to, and I quoted up in London for, it was actually a very famous person actually who sold a very famous business for a lot of money, and he had 2 daughters, and they were both affected by CO poisoning in their family home in Chelsea, I think it was, somewhere up that end of the world in London, a very posh place, and one of them is now living with the effects of the CO poisoning. I think the other one fully recovered, but one is now got life-changing consequences from that. I'm not sure what the politically correct word is, so I'll just tiptoe around that there. But yeah, she's now got challenges for the rest of her life. So looking up a few bits about Gaslec, being Gas Safe Week. So there's many criticisms about the gas industry here. And there was one person that popped their head up and said what we should do is maybe charge £2,000 a year for Gas Safe registration. So I think at the moment it's about £500 to be a member of Gas Safe for the year. But maybe we should make it a lot more money. And I think if we was to do that, could that then make more people not join Gas Safe, pretend to be gas safe, and then start doing illegal gas works? But having more money into the system would mean there'll be more people that are able to be employed by Gas Safe to go out and to do the checks and to do the spot checks, and then to be more proactive out there on the streets with it all. So it's a bit of an interesting one about should they sort of quadruple the cost of your Gas Safe membership. Also, should only gas appliances and products be like F-gas? So you've got to be Gas Safe registered to be able to purchase it. At the moment, anyone can buy a gas boiler, anyone can go buy a gas burner, anyone can go and buy a gas valve or get any sort of gas fittings, and they're freely available to anyone. Here at Gaslec, we do F-gas, we do air conditioning, and you've got to jump through hoops to buy anything within the air conditioning world, because it's like Gas Safe, it's a regulated industry, but they've gone down the environmental road of the ozone depletion and the impacts. So that's then how they've approached it to make it a completely closed system. And I think that'll be a really, really good way of trying to limit the amount of work that's done by Bob the Builder and his pal when they're doing an extension and that sort of stuff there. So I think it's not being taken too seriously. That's what it feels like. So to end the little Gas Safe Week there and conversation on the podcast, what I really would like to see is more people asking for a copy of your Gas Safe card and to have a look at it and to double check it as well. I've been asked once for someone to have a look at my Gas Safe card, and they had a look at it, and I said to them, actually what you should be looking at is having a look at the Gas Safe register, which is a live document up on the internet. And you'd be able to see, like if you typed in me, you'd be able to see my face and then all of my qualifications. And what a lot of people don't realise is that you may not be within your scope of work. So within the Gas Safe register, you'll have your domestic and commercial, and they'll have little ticks or little blanks or dashes next to what you can't work on. So just double check to make sure the person that you have employed doing a job for you is actually qualified in it. So just because they're a member of Gas Safe don't mean that they can do anything within the gas industry. So that rounds up that issue there. So the final bit, I want to talk to you about the job that I've been doing today, being Monday. So big shout out to Colin, young Colin. He's a young man over there. Been working over in a care home over in Tunbridge. And he sorted out a little bit of lunch for me, an aubergine lasagna for lunch. And we do love working in care homes around sort of lunchtime because they do have a bit of hot munch on, which is absolutely fantastic. I was really, really well looked after over there. So we was called up for There's an issue with a couple of boilers, one leaking, one not working. And there was down the other end of this like loft area, it's quite a big building. Right down the other end is all the there's loads of pipe work, it runs everywhere. I think the building's been extended and added on and extended and divided up. I don't think it was actually made as a care home from day one. I think it might have been a hotel. Certain things that weren't that important when it was a hotel now are very important now it's a care home. So things have been added onto over the years and people have got different ideas on how to do it. And none of it's labelled, none of it's mapped out. There's no diagrams for anything. And there was a couple of leaks. So they were using that very good high efficiency insulation around the pipework, which has got the rock wool and the silver outside to it. And that's a great for heat loss. But one of the downside with that is it's a great sponge and absorber for leaky pipes. So at that point, we was called out because there was water stains on the ceiling, and it was identified there was an elbow, like a 15mm sort of solder fitting that had actually gone. So while I was having a look at that, it was in an horrible little spot. It was really tight and dingy and had my head torch on and stuff. And then there was a joint lower down while I was making a bit of a plan for it, and that was dripping as well. So, okay, we'll change this section, change that section. So what now we've got to do, we've got 4 boilers and they've got 3 hot water cylinders totaling 600-700 litres of unvented hot water. I was like, right, okay, so now what we need to do is take the pressure out of the system, get it to a bit of a vacuum, get some bits ready, get a bowl ready, and a towel, and then cut the pipe, and then so we can do the 2 little sections nice and quickly. So as I took the pressure out of the system, and I had a little cheat for that, and get that done the PRV pipe work on one of the unvented cylinders, the pressure then would carry on rising. I was like, that's bizarre. So opened up the valve, shut it, dropped the pressure, pressure carried on rising. So what someone had fitted was a pressure reducing valve with a gauge onto the cold main system into the heating system. They'd set the gauge down lowish, maybe 1.5 bar, and then just opened up the cold mains feed to it. And then that was permanently feeding. Of course, that was in the darkest, dingiest bit, with all the old scrap, and because everybody had done some work up there and left the old rubbish behind it. It was right. So we dug that out, found that, isolated that. Then we took the pressure out. But as we was down the other end, and it was an horrible bit, we must have taken out 10, 15 buckets of water trying to drain the system out. Some bits of this is 42mm pipe work. Trying to drain these bits out. And the water went freezing cold. And it was a bit of an odd one, really. Why is it so cold? The heating's not been on, but the hot water circuits were on. So why is it's not room temperature cold. It was cold water coming out. So we got to a point where we could manage the water that was coming through, because it kept coming through in waves, and we got the little bits done. And because it was wet, I had to use compression. But we got the leak fixed, and we stopped the damage to the building, which then got me on to thinking, where could this be coming from? And we've put a request to go back in. I think there's a hole in the coil to the hot water cylinder that's then back feeding into the heating circuit. So obviously they've got 3 hot water cylinders. So which one is it? Well, we don't know. I'll probably start with the oldest one first. But what we've got is that we've got the whole body of hot water that's been indirectly heated by the coil from the boiler circuit, and then that indirectly heats the hot water, and that's how the heat transfer works. But if we get a hole in that copper pipe that goes round in that continuous spiral, that we might call that a pinhole. The water that's around, that's now being held at mains pressure, can now go into the heating circuit, and then so we're draining the heating circuit. But now we're getting the water coming through, and very, very quickly, all of the hot water cylinders started cooling down because they were drawing off the hot water without it being replenished. And this is quite a big care home, so it don't take long. Certainly at lunchtime when everything's on the go around the building. So yeah, always bear that in mind. If you've got a strange behavior of water not stopping, you're draining down the heating, but things are still going on, that you could have a hole inside the coil, which is very difficult to test. Actually, we've got a couple of techniques onto here which we put forwards. So one of the things I'm going to do is take off the coil and to see if water comes out. We'll take the top one off first, get the wet vac ready, pull some water out, and if the water continues, well, that shouldn't if the bottom valve's turned off. Another thing is I had one a while ago. It was up in a loft in the F&E tank, and was finding that we drained the heating down and then it would start filling back up again, and it would find the level with the hot water, with the cold water storage. And I was like, that's bizarre. Like, we drain the heating and then the ball valve drops down in the big tank and then the little tank starts rising slowly, but it's not a fast rise because it's just a pinhole. But you give it and you start doubting yourself. You get pen marks and you start mounting it in, or you get like a steel ruler and then a rule, and you drop that in the water and you'll see it then coming up the rule over a period of a short amount of time. So always bear that in mind. You may have to you may find that. So, but yeah, a fantastic team over there. I won't mention who they are over at the care home, but they know who they are, and certainly Colin does as well. And he's one of our new subscribers to the Gaslec podcast. I couldn't believe it. I've known him for a while now, and he was telling me about this YouTuber that he follows in the plumbing world, and he didn't follow us. So we've got him on board now. So thank you very much indeed, Colin. And hopefully some of the stuff on my previous episodes as well, working in your line of the sort of the general maintenance guy in these buildings, will actually help as well. So, we'll have a look at the rest of the 71 previous episodes. Right, so that rounds us up for another Gaslec podcast. And thank you very much indeed. I've been rattling on here for, got to find the timer, about 25, 26 minutes. So a bit shorter than last week. So thank you very much indeed for listening, guys. Thank you very much wherever you are. If you have any questions and want to put it to us here at the podcast, email us at podcast@gaslec.net. If we can help with any plumbing, commercial works within your home or business here within the southeast of England, email us at office@gaslec.net. Have a fantastic week and see you soon. Take care. Goodbye.